A lot of my videos are mostly about narcissists. But in this one, let's talk more about you. Let's talk more about what you're experiencing, what you're going through, and how it's affecting you. Because this is very important. Although I haven't really discussed the trauma bond in greater detail, as I'm about to in this video. But I must give the disclaimer as well, that we are talking about trauma in this video, and I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not a trauma coach. So of course I do recommend for you to seek out a trauma coach who specializes in this so that they can help you to recover. But with that being said, I am confident in what I'm about to say. I've done years of research on this. I've got years of experience. So I believe that you will get something out of this, that this will help you. And this already begins with the acceptance of it. Because nothing can change until we first accept what we are dealing with. I mean, just look at narcissists. They never change because they're in denial. They can't change something if they don't even accept that something is wrong. And of course, they teach us to be in denial as well. They get us to keep this code of silence to enable their behavior. And of course, by doing that, by us staying in denial, then it just causes this to continue. It causes you to feel trapped. So identify that it is a trauma bond. Identify that it is not love. It is not a connection. Actually, if anything, it is disconnection because it involves trauma. But you may have viewed it as love. It may have felt like love. But the first step is that you have to recognize that you have been in denial. Recognize that it is a skewed perception of love. And it may be something that you were taught in childhood. That's typically how it is. And of course, I don't like to invalidate anyone's feelings or perceptions. But let's just look at it like this. I mean, love is not trauma. Love is not stress, anxiety, or pain. Real love is warmth. It is acceptance. It is freedom and connection. Love heals you. It does not kill you. Love frees you. It does not trap you. And love has nothing to do with obsession or addiction. So let go of the cognitive dissonance, the two conflicting beliefs. But you get confused about whether they're a good person, if they're bad. If you have to, just write it down, the things that you've been through, the things that have been done to you. Take note of all of these things. Reflect on it. Remind yourself of what you're dealing with. Remind yourself of how it has been consistent. It's a consistent pattern of behavior. You're not dealing with a lover. You are dealing with an abuser. And that's the first step to breaking this trauma bond, is having that acceptance. Because what really keeps people trapped, what really keeps people locked in, is that denial, to where they don't accept it or they don't want to accept it. And sometimes because it can feel good in some sick, twisted way, it can give you a thrill, an adrenaline rush, a dopamine hit when you finally get them to respond, when you finally get them to be nice again. It feels like you've been rewarded, like you've won something. And it's like the same thing that they use at casinos with gambling. It's a very painful addiction. So you've got to connect back to reality. You've got to understand what you're actually dealing with. Do not live in denial. It will only make it more painful. It will only make it worse. I mean, just look at how these narcissists behave. Look at how crazy they are. Because that's just it. I mean, they're trauma bonded to you as well. They're living off of these adrenaline rushes and dopamine hits. And just look at what it's doing to them. It's driving them crazy. They engage in such ridiculous, reckless behaviors as a result of their trauma bond to you. And this is what causes them to act in the way that they do. Typically for them, it's more of a fight response. Well, for us, it's usually fawn or flight, or sometimes freeze. At least until you become awakened. Once you awaken out of that denial, even though you may still have a trauma response, it will tend to be more fight. Of course it will, because then you recognize that you're dealing with an abuser, you're dealing with a predator, you're dealing with someone who does not mean you any well, so of course you're going to fight, you're going to defend yourself. While before, while you were asleep, when you didn't realize what you were dealing with, you would freeze or fawn. And flight, that could be different. I mean, you might have the flight response sometimes because you feel embarrassed, you feel like it's you. But also you can have the flight once you awaken and you recognize what you're dealing with. So typically it's going to be more fight or flight once you awaken, once you recognize that you're dealing with an abuser. But also, another thing that you must become aware of in order to break this trauma bond is that you must recognize that their trauma has nothing to do with you. Even though they're blaming you, even though they're saying it's all your fault. I mean, if we've done something wrong and it is our fault, we should try to correct it. But now when we're talking about things like their emotions, their pain, I mean, there's only so much that you can validate them. There's only so many times that you can soothe and pacify them. And then at some point that should help them to regulate themselves. But you can do that for the narcissist as much as you want. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to help them. You being in denial and walking on eggshells around them, that's not going to solve their core issues. It's just going to perpetuate it. It's just going to pull them even further down the rabbit hole. And they're just never going to get themselves out of it. They're just going to go deeper and deeper into it, which is only going to cause you even more stress and anxiety, which makes you look like the problem. And then it's even easier for them to blame you, which locks you into this endless cycle of trying to fix all of them. Because you're walking on eggshells around them, you're trying to fix all of their problems, this puts tremendous amounts of stress and pressure on you, which of course then makes you look like the problem, because you're the one who's trying to fix everything. And when you're trying to fix everything, when you're always on edge, it puts a lot of pressure on you, a lot of stress, and it causes you to look unstable. Because of course, I mean, you just imagine you've got all of these duties and responsibilities piled on your back, and it's so heavy, of course, it's going to weigh you down. It's going to destabilize you. You've got to get that load off your back. But this is what they do. Because a lot of this comes from a childhood. Maybe you had a narcissistic parent who held you responsible for everything. Everything was always your fault. And they see that wound in you. They see that weakness, where you feel like it's your duty, it's your responsibility to fix the entire world. To where you're accountable for everything. To where they just put all of the blame onto you. Because it's easier for them to do that, rather than for them to go within and do the work. Even for us, I mean, it's easier to just act like nothing's wrong, to be in denial. It's easier to do that than it is to actually accept what you're dealing with. Than it is to actually accept the truth. Yes, you're being abused. Yes, they're a predator. Yes, they're likely to be highly narcissistic. Yes, you're being victimized. Yes, nothing that you do is going to fix them. Nothing that you do is going to make them change. You've got to accept all of this. Because when you do that, then you can finally focus on your healing. Then you're going to wake up and realize that you need to sever ties. You need to work on your childhood wounds. You need to work on whatever it was that made you feel responsible to take care of them. To take care of a grown adult like you're taking care of a child. Of course, I understand that in some situations it's easier said than done. Because some of these narcissists, they will go to the ends of the earth to find you. To find their parent, their caretaker. Because they have an arrested emotional development. They're children in adult bodies. They can't take care of themselves. They need an emotional regulator. They need someone to be there for them. To take responsibility for them. Because they just never grew up. They never learned what it's like to be a man or a woman. And it's because no one pacified or soothed them in childhood. Because in childhood, we do need an external regulator. We do need someone to regulate our emotions, because children cannot regulate themselves. They have to be taught how to do that. And that's the parent's job, the parent's role to do it. It doesn't mean that it's not in our nature to be self-regulated or to be loving or empathic. That's not what that means. It just means that it's the parent's job, the parent's role to teach them that. It's just a part of the parenting process. So it is a part of our human nature to be empathic, not to be barbarians. It's meant to be taught to us. But it wasn't taught to them. They were not regulated in childhood. They were not pacified or soothed. At least not correctly. So now they seek an external caretaker. For the rest of their lives, they will always need a parent. And that's what we were to them. That's what our job was to care for them, protect them. Give them unconditional love, no matter what they did to us. Just like a child. I mean, that may be the relationship that many of you have with your children, as we should do. It's like no matter what your child does, no matter how much they hurt you, you stick by them no matter what. Because that's your job, that's your role. That's what you have created. And no matter how bad things get, you've got to stick by them. Just like a captain must go down with their ship. Now, of course, that's not to say that you may be having difficulty with a child, but just hypothetically speaking, and as it relates to this narcissist, that's exactly what it's like. You're dealing with someone who is the opposite of you. Now, your job as a child, as crazy as it is, your job as a child was to take care of your parent. And this shows in all of your behaviors. This shows in everything that you're doing, in every way that you're treating them. It shows. It shows what your job, your role was in childhood. Because what do you do when something goes wrong? Do you hold them accountable for it? Do you expect them to take care of it? Or do you overextend yourself? Do you take on things that you should not be taking on? And yet, what do? They just sit back and they let you carry on. They let you overextend yourself. They let you do more than what is necessary, than what is required. They let you baby them, pacify them. Because that was your role in childhood for your parents. And it doesn't always mean that you were doing excessive chores. It doesn't always have to mean something physical. It could just be the emotional side of it. So you experienced emotional incest in childhood, where you heard all sorts of things from your parents. Maybe they were complaining about the other parents or other family members. They were constantly arguing with you, shouting at you, yelling at you, saying all sorts of things to you that you never should have heard. They were dumping all of this onto you as a child. And that's how you get involved with these narcissists. That's why you feel a pull, you feel this attraction to them, because it's familiar to you. And honestly, it's a really sick thing to do to a child. And even to this day, I struggle to comprehend it. How someone can have this emotional incest with their child. It's extremely damaging. But this is the way that narcissists are, because they struggle to regulate themselves. They were never taught how to do this in childhood, so they have an arrested emotional development. And in this dynamic, they make the child their parent. They make the child their caretaker. They dump all of their emotional baggage onto the child, and the child regulates the parent. Now, of course, this does make me wonder, how on earth did the child learn to regulate themselves in that type of environment, around toxic, dysfunctional people? How did they manage to regulate themselves? to where they were then able to regulate a fully grown adult. And in all honesty, I haven't got an answer for that. That's something that I cannot understand. I mean, in my individual situation, we did have neighbours, a church minister and his wife. They were very loving, very caring. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason why I've grown to be emotionally mature and why I have the ability to regulate myself and to have empathy for other people. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason why. But then that would mean that everyone would have had to have had someone in their childhood who taught them how to do this. Because otherwise, how could a child just regulate themselves, teach themselves to have empathy? Unless maybe you just saw your parents fighting and arguing. Somehow you just knew it's not right. It didn't make you feel good. It caused you a lot of stress and anxiety. And you just knew that you never wanted to be like that. Who knows? But if anyone wants to do some more research on that particular topic, definitely share what you find in the comment section below. Or if you want to discuss your personal experiences, because I'm interested to learn more about that. How does a child learn to regulate themselves in a toxic environment in childhood? But yeah, that was your job, that was your role. Take care of your parents emotionally, dumping that responsibility onto a child. And yet when something happened to you, what did they do? Maybe they just said that you deserved it. Or it triggered them to see you being vulnerable, so then they just abuse you even more. Maybe they just ignored you. Maybe they minimized it, never validated it. And yet you had to validate them in everything, for all of their problems, for anything that went wrong for them. And it's just crazy. It's disgusting behavior. No parent should ever do that to their child. No parent should ever dump all of their negative emotions, all of their emotional baggage onto their child. It's wrong. That's one of the worst things that you can do to them. It robs them of their childhood. It robs them of their future. It robs them of a potential healthy relationship, to where they then end up getting involved with narcissists. Because otherwise, if our parents didn't treat us that way, if there wasn't this emotional incest, if they didn't dump all of these duties and responsibilities onto us, expect us to be their caretakers, if they didn't do that, then we wouldn't be so attractive to narcissists. Because that's what narcissists are attracted to. They want someone who's going to take care of them. Someone who's going to feel responsible for their emotions. So we have our narcissistic parent to thank for all of this. And it's always the parent's fault. It's never the child's fault. The child is never to blame. But this is what gets us involved with narcissists. This is what makes us stay with them. This is what causes us to be trauma bonded. We feel responsible for their emotions, for their situation, no matter how extreme, no matter what we have to do. But no matter what you do, it's never enough, because their parent didn't regulate them in childhood. They didn't learn how to regulate their emotions. So now it's too late. Now nothing that you do is going to change them. Nothing that you do is going to make them better. But for you, you can change, you can be better, and it all begins by getting away from them. Because nothing's going to be better for you as long as you're around people who cannot regulate themselves. Because otherwise, at any moment, they're going to see you as the caretaker. You're going to spend all of your time and energy caring and worrying about them and neglecting yourself. So how are you supposed to get better? How are you supposed to improve? How are you supposed to heal if all of your time, energy, and focus is on them? And that's the whole point. They don't want you to heal. They don't want you to get better, because then you're not going to be their caretaker. Then you're not going to be there to regulate their emotions, and that is the whole point. That's why they keep you down. That's why they don't want you to grow or heal. So essentially, these types of people, they just finish your narcissistic parent's job for them. The narcissistic parent extends their role onto other people, who then control you and then use you as an emotional regulator. They further abuse you. The narcissistic parent sets you up. They prime you for what happens later in life. It's already preordained from the very beginning. From within the first few years of your life, to be set up to be this caretaker, this emotional regulator for the narcissist, so that other abusers, other predators can come around and use you to regulate them as well. And this is why narcissists get on very well with each other, because they see each other as extensions of themselves, and they work together. As Dr. Les Carter has said in his videos, sociopaths, they work together to target and control their sources of supply. They work together as a team in family dynamics, in the workplace, even with children in schools, so that they can all get a mutual benefit from them. Because these are people who were once kids who were neglected, or at least their emotions were neglected. They weren't emotionally validated. They went through a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of neglect, and no one was there to validate them, to regulate their emotions, to pacify and soothe them. No one was there to do that. And also in some situations, it could be the opposite. Maybe someone was always there. They were always there to do everything for them. Typically, it's an extreme. When they were really going through something, then their parent wasn't there. But then maybe if it was something small, maybe they just fell over and scathed their knee, and then their parent would rush in and help them. Typically, it's something where if the child just hurt itself, then it's a big deal. If you did something to yourself as a child, if you fell over, then they blow it up, then they're very worried, they're very concerned about you then. But when it's things that they did to you, they minimize it, they deny it, they forget about it. And this is what happened to the narcissist as well. Only for them, they took a different path. We had some kind of emotional strength inside of us to where we were then able to regulate ourselves. And to the point where then we could be a caretaker for our own parents. And I do apologize for all the noise in the background. I know they say this in every video. Normally it's quite quiet here, but now there's all of these horns in the background. People rushing back and forth outside. What I try to do now is just breathe deeply. It really helps. Because I can feel all of the blood just rushes to my head, to the brain. But yeah, it's a tremendous amount of stress and pressure to put on one person. It's like you're expected to take care of the entire family, regulate everyone. And then it spans out into school. You're responsible for all of the children. And then if they scapegoat you, they smear you, they gang stalk you, now you're responsible for the entire community. And I'm sure many of you may not mind that so much. You may not mind having that responsibility. You want to heal, you want to change people. But how is this supposed to work if you have all of the responsibility and no power? What are you supposed to do? And that's the double bind that they put you in. It's like they put you in a situation. It's like they lock you in a room. And they said that all you're going to do is just pick up the key, unlock the door, walk out. Problem is, there's no key. So what are you supposed to do about it? With all of the responsibility, but no power. And this is the same thing in every situation with a narcissist. They give you all of the responsibility, but no power. And here's the thing, it's the person who has the power. They are the ones who are responsible for everything in that situation. Everything that happens, everything that goes wrong. They're responsible for it. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's the other way around. They want all of the power and no responsibility. And the person who they make responsible is the one who has no power in that situation. Which is absolutely crazy. But this is exactly what they do. But yeah, if you want to break the trauma bond, of course, I advise that you do speak to a trauma recovery coach. I do coaching, but I'm not a licensed therapist, and I don't specialize in trauma recovery. Although, as you can see, I do have a wealth of experience and knowledge. But there are definitely going to be people out there who really specialize in this. And I am partnered with BetterHelp, where you can book a session with a licensed therapist there. So if you'd like to book with them, just go to betterhelp.com/narcsurvivor. Using that link helps to support our community as well. But yeah, if you want to break the trauma bond, you've got to have that acceptance. Accept the situation for what it is. Stop being in denial. Let go of the cognitive dissonance. And stop trying to help them. Because what you're doing is, when you're in denial, you're idealizing them. You're seeing them as perfect, as though they can't do anything wrong, which is exactly how they want you to see them. And by you doing that, it makes you feel like you need them. It makes you dependent on them, dependent on something that you're not receiving, that you're never going to receive. Well, they're receiving everything they need from you. You're regulating them. The reality is that they're not perfect. And if anything, they're more flawed than anyone else. They're the worst type of person to be around. They're horrible company. They're horrible for your health. They're no good at all. And when you realize that, it helps to let go of that denial. And also recognize that you're not responsible for them. You're not responsible for their emotions. They are responsible for their own being, for their own vessel. They're responsible for their own body, their own mind. I mean, you're not indoctrinating them, you're not brainwashing them, you're not entraining them. If someone is being brainwashed, indoctrinated, entrained, if they're under hypnosis, then we can debate about whether or not they are responsible for their actions. Or if they're being coerced, if they're being backed into a corner, if they're being forced to do something, if a gun is being held to their head and they're being told to do something they do not want to do, then we can have a debate about that person's free will and whether or not the other person is responsible for that person's actions. Because in those situations, they may be. But that is not the case with these narcissists. They are not bound to you. They create the trauma upon themselves. They hypnotize and entrance you deliberately. And with that being said, I mean, the reality is that many of you, when you engage in reactive abuse against a narcissist, you lash out at them. Many of you, in many ways, you're really not responsible for your actions because you're backed into a corner. Maybe they targeted you financially. If you try to leave, they'll sabotage you, they'll attack you. So what are you supposed to do? What is the right thing to do? And this is why you'll never get to have that conversation with them. What a brilliant conversation that would be. If you could ask them, okay, so if you were in my position, what would you have done? What would you do? And then as soon as they give an answer, you can then say, yeah, but if I did that, you would have done this. Or if I did this, you would have done that. So there is no way around it. You're boxed in, you're cornered when you're dealing with a narcissist. But recognize that you are not responsible for their traumas. You're not responsible for their emotions because you're not provoking them. You're not forcing them, you're not coercing them, you're not backing them into a corner. If anything, you're doing anything you possibly can to try and pacify and soothe them. You're walking on eggshells around them. You're toning yourself down, you're lessening yourself for them. You're doing everything you can to help them. And at the expense of yourself. So if anyone in this world was ever to be responsible for their traumas or emotions, it's definitely not you. It's the opposite. They set you up to be their caretaker, to take care of them, to make things better for them, to make them feel more comfortable. But it's the opposite for them. They're doing everything they can to provoke you, to coerce you, to destroy you, to keep you stuck. So yeah, recognize that you're not responsible for their emotions, for their traumas. And then you've got to focus on yourself. You've got to sever ties, you've got to heal. definitely speak to a therapist or coach first before you go no contact. Because again, I mean, you have all of the responsibility with no power. Many of you can't even leave without them coming after you. You can't do anything without them doing something to you. And yet you're held responsible not only for yourself, but for them. But isn't that just it? I mean, you're held responsible for them and you have no power over them to control them, no authority over them. And same thing for yourself. You're held responsible for yourself. You have no power over yourself. You have no control over yourself. You're being manipulated, deceived. You have no control of your own body, mind, your own vessel, your own actions and decisions. And yet you're held responsible for you. And when you realize this, you realize that all of the accountability, that really lies on them. Because in order for someone to be responsible, they've got to have some kind of power, some kind of control over what they're responsible for. And when you realize that, it should take some of the weight off your shoulders. It should take away some of the blame. Because many of you, you may have been blaming yourself this entire time. But really, you shouldn't be feeling any guilt. You may feel guilt, and that's okay, I understand it. But the guilt does not need to lie with you. You deserve to have a clear conscience. Because just look back at everything you've been through, look back at your life, and just think about it like this. What did you have any control over? What decisions did you get to make? Was any of that what you wanted to do? Was that who you wanted to be? Or was it something that was chosen, decided for you? And yet at the same time, you're the one with all of the responsibility. You're the one who has to deal with all of the consequences. Well, this is why we say they live in a fantasy world, a false reality. This is why we say that they are completely delusion. You're being gaslighted. You had no power over anything in that situation. You had no control. You had no control over your own mind. You were being brainwashed, indoctrinated, gaslighted. And anything that you do, even if you did the opposite of anything, that wouldn't have gone well as well. It's always a double bind with narcissists. You can go and do the opposite of whatever you did, whatever that was wrong, whatever that was meant to have caused a problem for them. That would have been a problem too. They would have had an issue with that as well. They would have blamed you for that. They would have held you accountable, even though you had no power and all of the responsibility. So yeah, that's what I got to say on the trauma bond. And it's absolutely tragic, it really is. So many of you victims and I always just come down to this now in recent videos, it seems, where it's like people talk about victim blaming, how you shouldn't victim blame, how it's never the victim's fault. Whenever I see that, I always want to chime in and just say, hold on, the victim must have some responsibility. But then it's like, well, wait. They had no power, no control over themselves, their own vessel. They had no power over the narcissist and what they were doing to them. Whatever they did, even if they did something else, they would have been blamed. They would have been attacked for that as well. So the deeper I go into this in every video, it just always comes down to the same thing. It never is the victim's fault. The victim is never responsible for anything. It is always the abuser. The abuser is to blame for everything, not only that they do to the victim, but even everything the victim does. Because you're like a puppet on a string. How can you be blamed for anything that you do? You have no free will. You have no will to do or choose anything in that situation. You're essentially like a robot and they have the remote control. You're completely under their control. And yet you're held responsible as though you have so much power. It is absolute insanity. It really is. And I think many people underestimate this. They underestimate how the victim really has no power. The victim really cannot be held responsible for anything that happens, for anything that is done to them, even anything that they do. I mean, you're just fighting for your own safety, your own protection, for your own healing. And at the same time, you're trying to help them. Really tightness of the chest. That's always the problem. The more truth that I speak, the tighter it gets you. The harder it is to breathe. Because by speaking truth, this is reality. A lot of people are in denial. A lot of people, they've been hiding from the truth for a very long time. But this is it. You had no power in that situation. And many of you, you had no power in your childhood. You were responsible for everything. And that's the thing, that's why we don't hold children responsible. Because they have no power. They have no power over what their parent does. They have no power even over themselves. The child does not have that cognitive ability. And we lack that cognitive ability when we're around narcissists. So it's like you've got no cognitive ability. Your problem solving, decision making skills, everything is impaired when you're around a narcissist. And yet you're held to such a high degree of responsibility. It's crazy. I mean, you're being manipulated, deceived, brainwashed, gaslit. It's like if someone just took your brain out of your head and just determined that despite that, you're still responsible for whatever happens after that. It's absolute insanity. It really is. And to say that we played a part in it, it was already preordained. It was already set up from the beginning, from childhood, that things were going to go that way. And of course, It takes some time to really gain the awareness, the understanding, or to find this information so we can do something about it. And of course, by the time you figure things out, it's already too late. They've already got you, because that's what they were already looking to do. And this programming, this childhood programming, was deliberate. It was done with reasoning and purpose behind it. And that's why anytime they see you deviating from the program, they try and pull you back into it. Because while they may criticize and blame you for everything, it's actually what they want. They want you to feel responsible for everything and have no power at all to change it as well. So that they can just eternally portray you as a villain. And it's because you're not a villain. It's because you actually expose them. I do believe that there is a spiritual side to this as well. And many of you, I think they saw the light in you at a very young age. Apologize for all the noise in the background. Always a lot of noise when I record videos. Doesn't matter if I'm doing a pre-recorded video, a laptop, a live video. TikTok videos aren't so bad. Maybe because they're short videos. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you're just a tool that they use so that they can remain in denial. So that they can live in a false reality. A false reality that they hate themselves. They hate their own false reality. They find no fulfillment in it. And yet, no matter what, they want to sustain it. It's pure insanity. It's psychotic. But this is how it is. This is how it is set up for all of you. Give the video a thumbs up if you found it helpful so far. I'm really just giving you the truth. I'm really just telling you how it is. I know there's a lot of people out there who do not want me to say this. But this is what it's like. I know there's a lot of victims out there who are going through this. You're given all the responsibility, but you have no power to change your life. And any time that you find your power in yourself, they take it away from you. It's crazy. When you explore the dynamics of responsibility and power, it is insanity. It makes no sense. And yet many of us, we wonder why things never get resolved. We wonder why things never get better. And it's because you're held responsible for things that you're not responsible for. It's like someone else is in the driver's seat. You're just sitting in the back and they crash the car. And they blame you for it. Or maybe they strap headphones around your head while you're in the car. And they blast just crazy music into your ear. And then you start lashing out at them, you start acting out of character. Maybe you then start attacking them because you just want to stop. And then they blame you for that. It's like, hold on, you got these earphones strapped to your head, or this music's blasting into your ear. How are you meant to control yourself? This is what it's like. It's crazy. But this is what these people have to do to feel comfortable. Because they're the ones who are insane. This is why there's no peace with them. This is why they're always trying to provoke you. This is why you have to go through so much stress and anxiety. To make you look like the crazy person. Because otherwise, if none of that was there, they would look like the crazy ones. This is why they have to do it. To sustain their false reality, their false character. Even though they don't really like their false reality anyway, it brings them no fulfillment. They can't find any joy in it. And that's why whenever they see you being happy about anything, it pulls them out of their false reality, because they need someone outside of it to sustain it. Yvette Amran Yun says they want you to be miserable like them. That's happiness for them. That's right, that's their idea of happiness. It's causing people problems, irritating them, provoking them, getting a sense of joy from their pain. That's happiness to them. That's their idea of fun. Classic Cat says, isolation brings me back to reality and peace of mind. That's it. I mean, all it is, you could be feeling fine. You could be doing well. You could be very confident, very successful. And then what they do is, all they have to do is just gain access to your life, infiltrate, and then everything just blows up because they're there. And then they point the finger at you because, of course, any normal person with all of this toxicity and dysfunctional behavior, you're not going to be feeling comfortable around that. They are, because they thrive in those environments. But if you're a normal, healthy person and a crazy person comes around you and starts causing disruption, if you're normal and healthy, what is a healthy response to that going to be? Of course, you're not going to be feeling too good in yourself. You're going to start to destabilize. And they play on that, then they point the finger at you. They say there's something wrong with you. When you're just minding your own business. You're just living your own life. You're not even thinking about them. They're the ones who are thinking about you. They're seeing that they can get something out of you. They can control you. Because they're the ones who need you. You do not need them. Their job is to come into your life and to make you think that you need them. When all you really need is yourself. You never needed them. Saul says, move in pieces like telekinesis, like a chess game. Let's play with real pieces. That's it. I mean, you need supernatural powers to be able to deal with these people. Tit Predict says, I did not receive my inheritance from my parents, from my grandparents. Yeah, that's the typical thing that narcissists will do. Actually, the church minister that I was talking about, who was really like my only friend in childhood, who I could speak to. We had a friendship for many years, and then one day he left me a lot of money in his will, and that was stolen by my father, and I've never seen a penny of it. He just said that he bought me food and I lived in his house. So that's where the money went. But of course, I mean, that's kind of something that parents are supposed to do, that they're meant to take care of their children anyway, but this is how they think, isn't it? They think it's a privilege for us to have a roof over our heads and to have food, even though you're also made responsible for things that a child should never be made responsible for. But yeah, that's what they will do. They will keep your inheritance away from you. They don't want you to have any power in your life, any freedom. Because that's the thing, if you've got power, if you've got freedom, if you're able to govern yourself, how can you be to blame for anything? You're barely going to do anything wrong. You're going to do everything right. And they don't want you to do everything right, they want to blame you. So in order for them to blame you, they have to take your power away. They have to take away your ability to be responsible for yourself in order to blame you. But it's a catch-22, because if you're not responsible for yourself, then how can you be to blame? Ted Predict says we develop brain damage with narcs. That's right. And this has been scientifically proven. Narcissistic abuse does cause real physical brain damage. And yet despite that, we're made responsible for everything for them. But it's like, how are you meant to change anything once you've been abused and they've damaged your brain? You need time to heal and recover. And of course, they don't give you space. They won't even let you leave. They won't let you go no contact. So they give you a problem to solve that's unsolvable. Saul says, listen to your favorite music, have a relaxing night with yourself and your new life. That's it. I mean, if you're dealing with narcissists, flying monkeys, gang stalkers, you can't even do that. You can't do anything. I can't even remember the last time I just had a peaceful night by myself, or peaceful anything. Michela Luck asks, why do they break our things? And that's typically out of envy or jealousy. I mentioned this in one of my earliest videos. The narcissist wants to destroy you. What I described about 2 children on the beach, and one child built a sandcastle, and the other child came over and kicked it down. And then the child tried to rebuild the sandcastle, and then the child came back and kicked it down again. Also, another scenario is 2 children in school, maybe playing with a toy, and one child is jealous of the child's toy. They want to have it, but the child won't let them have the toy. So then they break it, they destroy it, because they can't have it. But it could even be 2 children having the same toy. One child still breaks the child's toy because they can't get the same fulfillment from it. So this is why they break your things. Yvette Amringen says if you're healed, you're not going to be targeted. Actually, that's not true. Because while you may be healed, you may have wounds from the past. And no one is ever completely 100% healed. You're always going to have some kind of vulnerability, some weakness, something that they can target. Even if it's just a tiny little wound, it's still something there that they can open it up into something bigger. This is why many of you, there really is a sense of hopelessness when you're dealing with narcissists. Because it is a hopeless situation. It really is. And this is why my videos are mostly negative, because it is negative. It's a hopeless situation. Even when you try and go no contact, they come after you, they stalk you. So this is an ongoing thing. But you just got to keep moving forward and never stop. Keep upgrading yourself, keep making new versions of yourself. That's the only way to get through it. And even then, there may never be a time when you come out of the other side and you can say that you got out of it. But you just got to keep moving forward. And that's really the only positive interpretation of it. I mean, for some of you, you may be able to go no contact and they may just leave you alone. That can happen sometimes. But for a lot of you, they're not just going to leave you alone. They will continue to stalk you. And you just have to keep it moving. You just have to keep doing things to protect yourself as much as you can. Of course, I know it's easier said than done. I know that it will be difficult. But you just got to keep trying and never give up. Don't let them defeat you. We need more light in this world. Again, I apologize for the noise in the background. We've got some loud modified cars and people giggling outside the door. Honestly, I can't remember the last time in my life I had a moment and there was no noise, just peace. Very rare. Maybe in some occasions a few years ago, but I was at a remote beach. Typically, wherever I go now, I could go anywhere in the world and there will be people there making lots of noise, trying to get my attention. I honestly can't remember the last time that I just had even a moment to just be alone with myself. Especially when I make a video, it really attracts people. It attracts all the trolls into the live chat. It attracts all of the noise around me because, this is really what it's all about. You have a lot of optimism inside of you. You're positive about the future. You have hope. Despite what they may have done to you in your childhood, you still have hope. You still believe. And they want to crush your belief because they've already given up. They gave up a long time ago. They gave up on people, they gave up on life, they gave up on themselves, and they've given up on you. So that's why typically when you're doing something to better yourself, Maybe you're at the gym. Maybe you're working on something. Whatever you may be doing, something positive, something that is making you better, then that's the perfect time for them to oppose you and to fight against it. That's how they gain their power from you. And also sometimes if you're feeling sad, you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, and suddenly they're happy. This is just typically how covert narcissists behave. As Michelle Neves has outlined in her videos as well. And that's why sometimes now I struggle with speaking, communicating. I stutter a lot. I have difficulty with breathing. Because it's like anytime I try and make a video, I try and express myself to you, try and help you. Of course, there's always so much pushback, there's always so much noise, so many distractions, and then it prevents me from speaking out and from sharing the truth. Of course, they want to silence people. That's why there's all of the loud noise everywhere, because they don't want people to know all of this as well. They don't want you to awaken. They don't want you to get better. This is why they do the things that they do. Yup says, in reality, narcs have low self-esteem. They reflect an air of confidence, but it's a facade. Yeah, that's right. They're actually very insecure. And that's why they typically never come out and say that they're insecure or that they lack confidence. And they never can say that they're unhappy. They always got to pretend that everything's fine, or they make it your fault, they make it your problem. Because deep down, they're actually just very miserable people who are pretending to be happy. And that's either just a bond with you, or sometimes, they like to do the opposite of you when they're devaluing you. So they'll put you down, they'll make you feel bad, and then suddenly they're having a great time, they're very happy. These are just their little Jedi mind tricks that they like to use to try and destabilize you, and to get you to question yourself, to gaslight yourself, so that it provides them with a sense of security and stability. CR says, my CT scans revealed brain changes. Yes, I have seen reports that narcissistic abuse can be identified in brain scans and possibly in MRIs as well. So there is real physical evidence that can be found of narcissistic abuse. And it's very different to other forms of abuse. So with time, this will be more available to us, and who knows, these kinds of things could be used as evidence to be served in court. But yeah, I know it's tough going through this, and what's important to identify is that although you may feel like you're going through it, you may feel down, you may feel depressed, you may feel unhappy, you may feel stressed. Whatever you're going through, you can be sure that they are going through a lot worse. And that's how they do these things, because it's even worse for them. if they were already feeling like it's a lot worse for you than it is for them, then they would just leave you alone. They're trying to pull you down. Kamal Walker says, yes, I felt hopeless, even while working 50 hours a week. Oh, that's incredible, 50 hours a week. That's some hard work. But yeah, despite how many hours you work, they will still make you feel like you're doing nothing. Because they just can't get any fulfillment from anything. No matter what you're doing, it still feels like nothing to them. But then also they're kind of envious of it too. And they wish that it was them. They wish they could be better and do more. Dorothea Livingston says they need your attention. That's how they feed off of you. Yep, they've got to have our attention. That's why they're so attention seeking, they're attention whores. And they try and train you, they try and trauma bond you to seek their attention, because you don't realize that you're seeking attention from someone who's mentally ill, someone who's very sick, someone who has no energy, no power inside of themselves to heal you or to make you feel better. They can only make you feel worse. But that's how it is with them. I mean, what you've got to understand about these types of people is that they're barely even conscious. They're barely even alive. They're barely even living. And that's why when you get around them, they try and make you the same way. Now all of a sudden, you're feeling detached. You're feeling disconnected. You're feeling discombobulated. You're feeling like something's wrong with you. Like you can't get any enjoyment out of life. You may feel like a zombie yourself. But that's only because you've been around them. And that's how it is for them every day of their life. That's how it's always been. Just flat emotion. A lack of energy and enthusiasm. That's their life. And yet we wonder why they're so mad, why they lash out at us, why they hate us, why they envy us. That's why. Because life for you is good, it's happy, it's free. For them it's a miserable experience. They just feel like they're stuck here on this earth, having to watch everyone else have a good time, when it's so miserable for them. And they'll do everything they can, every trick in the book. They'll devalue you, they'll isolate you, they'll triangulate you, try to make you feel like you got nothing and now you're missing out on something with them. And then they see that you're still okay. They see you're happy by yourself with your own company. And then they've got to come back again to disrupt you. Because while they may be pretending, everything's still miserable for them. And they see that you're happy with nothing, with no one, all by yourself. And then they can't stand that. So now they have to give you things just so that they can take it away. Sometimes it gets to that point. It's like they literally have to give you something. Once they've taken everything from you, they have to give you something and then just take it away or destroy it. It's absolute insanity, it is. It's like these people are constantly looking for reasons, excuses, not to just go and destroy themselves. But either way, whatever they do, it's still self-destructive. John Tracy says these predators relish in your misfortune. Kirsty Teco says, I've never been in the gym. I do not expose my body. It's good to go to the gym, good to exercise. It can be very healing. You don't have to expose your body to the gym. You can just wear a t-shirt, some joggers. But I know what you mean. There are often a lot of strange people at the gyms these days as well. You see a lot of it on TikTok. And also Terry Joel Jr., he talks a lot about that. All of the issues that he's had in the gym. Yeah, I've seen that. There are always a lot of attention whores in the gym. It's like they'll do anything just to get your attention. Just so that they can feel something. But the last thing they want is for you to actually go and interact with them or try and talk to them. Because then all that's going to do is burst their bubble. It just crushes the illusion. Again, they will do all sorts of things. They'll give you the narcissistic stare. They'll just do weird things to get your attention. And all you can really do is just ignore it. But even then it's difficult because the more you try to ignore them, I mean, they're like children in adult bodies. They will come over and start just waving their hands in front of you. They will do anything to get your attention. They will literally just come out and walk right in front of you and wave their arms around sometimes. I've seen it. And even then, if you get angry, if you don't like it, or if you just try and give them the attention that it seems they want, you try and talk to them, either way, then it's your fault. That you're this horrible person. Because all they really want is to distract you and get you to resist them, because then they mistake that for interest. As though that means that there's something special. And this is almost like a part of the trauma bond as well, because it's like they misread your stress, anxiety, distaste, resistance. They misread all of that for interest. And that's just ridiculous. It's just nonsense. But that's how they take it in their minds. I mean, some of these narcissists are so delusional. You could be doing everything, and I mean everything, to get away from them, everything to avoid them. You could be like me, walking around with shades and earphones for hours a day. And sometimes when I'm walking around, even with the shades on, if I see someone come in, I'll look in a different direction. What I might do is just close one eye so I can't see them anymore. And despite that, you still get some people who still walk out in front of you. They'll still try another way. And if you look at them then just for a second, they feel like, yes, I got you. Yes, I'm something. They're absolutely delusional. There's nothing you can tell them. There's nothing you can do. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're on the next rocket to the moon. They'll still think that that means that you want them, that you're interested in them. They're really that delusional. There is nothing that you can tell them. Classic Cat says, once I told him he had a perfect nose, and he reacted so surprised. Yet he acted so arrogant, conceited, and confident. He was actually insecure about his looks. Yeah, that's typically how they react when they're really insecure. And they don't really like it so much when you compliment them, because they just kind of want to shock you. They want to impress you, but in a way where it's unspoken. Because otherwise it bursts the bubble, it bursts the fantasy when you come out and tell them. Instead, they want to be able to read it in your facial expressions, body language, or tone of voice, because then it means that they're in control of you. They don't want you being in control of that. They don't want you to, independently of them, choose to express what you like about them or compliment them. Because then they see it as though that gives you the power. So they want to force it out of you. They want to have something that makes them very unique, very special. So, I don't know. Something that overpowers you. Such as, you see these people who wear like these T-shirts. I don't even know if they're real. I was never really the type of person to do this, even though I could afford it before and I used to get a lot of nice designer clothes. But you get these people who have like these T-shirts, and it could be a Gucci, Prada T-shirt, and they got to have it in massive letters, so that it's designed to like shock you, to where you're looking at it thinking, hold on a minute, how the hell did this person how the hell did this person afford $600 for a T-shirt? Which is, that's what we're thinking at the time. But then to them, that's kind of a compliment, because it's intimidated you, it's shocked you, like it's overpowered you in the moment. That's the kind of mindset that they have, where it's like out of your control. And then you're looking at them and you're like, oh, I know this person wants my attention, they want my validation. And then you just kind of resist it. You don't want to give it to them because it's just so fake. And you know what they're trying to do. That's the kind of mindset that they have. They don't want it to be something where, they just got like a nice outfit on. And then you just willingly, out of your own choice, your own decision, you can say to them that they look good. And you can compliment them. They don't want it to be that way. And the reason why, it's because they're insecure. A confident person doesn't need to do that. They don't need to have some big letters on their shirt. They can just dress nicely, and someone compliments them, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. And they can accept the compliment. They can say thank you. And that's enough. It doesn't have to go above and beyond. It doesn't have to be anything over the top. That comes from insecurity. And if there's one thing I've learned from traveling the world, I've seen that it's often the people who are the most attractive and the people who are the wealthiest and the most successful, they're often the most insecure. They're often the ones who are very grandiose, and they have to be overpowering, they have to be intimidating, and it's just like, what is this for? Is all of this is this grand display? Is it because you feel so small inside? And of course, that's exactly what it is. It's because they feel so small inside. It's like the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. And I think society and the media, they encourage this. And it's just really sad. because it's got nothing to do with confidence. It's insecurity. But there's nothing you can tell those types of people. They're going to think that you're intimidated by them, you're envious of them. There's not going to be any getting through to them because they're insecure. If they were secure, they'd be able to listen to you, they'd be able to understand. But yeah, that's why, I mean, you can compliment them, you can give them a really great compliment, you can say they've got the perfect nose, and yeah, they will react arrogantly. Because I don't know, maybe he wanted his nose to intimidate you, to overpower you. Maybe he wanted to just stick it in your face. So then you react and you just fall backwards. And then he feels like he's got you then. He got your reaction. That's the kind of compliment they want. They want it to be involuntary, where you can't control it. Kamal Walker says, I had inflammation issues while living with him, a nightmare. Yeah, that's definitely something we will all experience with narcissists, is the inflammation in all parts of the body. You just get this feeling of tightness. You feel like the blood is stuck in certain parts of your body. This is why exercise is so important. Stretching, yoga, deep breathing, and also paracetamol, ibuprofen can help. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm just giving you advice on what's worked for me, because I've dealt with a lot of the inflammation. And at this point, I'm so in tune with my body, I can feel it. When I'm around narcissists, I can feel the blood is rushing to my brain. Or maybe it's pooling in my legs. My legs get very tight, very stiff. I've developed this very strong awareness of my body. But yeah, you will get inflammation issues. Definitely see a doctor for that. Get some treatment. Saul says the world is huge. The narc acts as if it's only them. I said they have very low awareness. So they have a very limited experience in life and of this world and of people and even of themselves, because they lack self-awareness too. So everything's just so small, so just contained for them. Maybe that's why they're so miserable. Maybe that's why they're always seeking a thrill. Narcissism Exposed 101 says half of the things they do should have been responded with consequence a long time ago. That's right. All of these enablers who enabled them, they should have been held accountable years ago. This is why they continue to get worse. Come on Walker says, I don't wear tight-fitting stuff at the gym. All you see online. Yeah, I find that really weird. How people dress these days. I mean, I spoke about that in my most viewed video, how to make the narcissist obsessed with you. I said, when you're moving on, don't change anything too much about your clothing. Don't wear tight-fitted clothing like a lot of people do. That's what a lot of people do when they just, they finish a relationship, and then when they get that person's attention again, they start wearing tighter outfits, maybe more makeup. They just change things about themselves. But the way I look at it is, a lot of these girls these days, I mean, everyone's already seen their body. Everyone pretty much already knows exactly what they look like naked. So it's like, where is the exclusivity? How is it special for anyone? JC Winters says, COVID narc has ruined my career and 4 businesses. It's been real tough. Love your videos, had helped. Yeah, many of them will just keep going. I mean, it's got nothing to do with your confidence, success, or you not being good enough. You could make 100 businesses, they will just destroy them all, and they'll still blame you. So it's nothing to do with you, and it doesn't matter how much you do. That's not going to change anything. That's not going to make things better for them. They're still going to have the problem that they have. But yeah, you just got to keep going. You got to keep building and don't stop. Saul says, narcs love showing skin. Yeah, strange, because many of these narcs, they don't actually have good skin. A lot of them have like skin issues and spots, acne, dark spots. Narcs don't really have good skin. And I don't know, it's like they all do it. It's like seen one, seen them all. It's like all they really want is just to be, they want to be the, what is it? Like some ideal person for a one-night stand. Or for like, for 5 minutes. That's what they live for. As for anything long term, as for anything out of the moment, then they don't care about it. Is that not true with all of them? I mean, just look at how they behave in the love bombing. They do everything they can to be this like perfect one-night stand for you. And then after that, they just let themselves go. And they just lose interest in it. And I think this goes back to their childhood. It's just all about their performance, and it's all about what they could do. Being something desirable to their parent. So now they just follow on from that. But as for anything more, they don't care about it. It's kind of sad when you think about it. It's like, if that's all you got to show for yourself is, well, you're just like the, you're the perfect option for a one-night stand for 5 minutes. Never mind anything else. Garden Keeper 1 says wearing butt crack leggings. Yeah, that's what they all do these days. And then if anyone even looks in their direction, then suddenly they're a pervert. It's just crazy, the way the world is today. And some of these girls, as I said, they will walk in front of you at the gym. I've seen this on TikTok. They will walk in front of men, they will bend over in front of them with these tight leggings on. And then, if you imagine me, I could just be sitting here doing weights, and then maybe I look up, and then suddenly you're labelled a pervert. Oh, I think I muted the mic. Okay, the sound is back on. Thank you for the donation, Faith. The sound is back on now. Yvette Amranyan says hair loss is another sign you're with a narc. Definitely, I'd say so. That's another sign that you're with a narc. It's when you start experiencing hair loss. And I myself, I've been experiencing some hair loss, as you can see. It's all the stress. Fortunately, I do try to take good care of myself. I look after my skin. I eat vegan. So I've still managed to retain quite a youthful appearance. But yeah. To break the trauma bond, you just got to practice acceptance. Accept reality. Accept that love is not trauma, stress, pain, anxiety. Love is none of those things. Connection has nothing to do with any of that. That's all trauma. That's all bonding over trauma. And that's all that they have to give to you because they're very insecure. They have a lot of trauma to bond with you over. So that acceptance is very important. Accept the reality of it. Accept that before you were in denial. And don't hold yourself responsible for their trauma. Recognize that it is theirs, it is their emotions. They're trying to share it with you, but you don't want it. And then you just focus back on yourself, you sever ties, and you focus on healing. But of course, speak to a therapist or coach first. A trauma recovery coach you can book with BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/Narc Survivor. Using that link helps to support our community. Or if you'd like to speak to me one-on-one, you can go to my website. It is narcsurvivor.co.uk. But yeah, gradually you can break this trauma bond. You can get out of it. You can come back in to yourself. So yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, you can give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe and click on notifications so that you will be notified when I go live again. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You can donate through my PayPal. It's paypal.me/narcsurvivor. And follow me on Instagram. You will see all of the mountains that I've been to in Japan. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. Alright, thank you from me and Nala. Nala just knocked the phone there. Thank you everyone for your support, and I will talk to you soon.